go.
Hello, welcome to the weekly Friday talk of the Men Are Human Discord. My name is BlueOrange22. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about my phone call with the Sam Seder show and the Majority Report. Many of you may have seen this episode. It was a complete disaster. I think we had a horrible discourse. And frankly, I was stunned that such a renowned show could be so unprofessional towards a guest. So I'm going to start off by calling them again. I sent them a message about this live stream. They are aware of it. So let me call them right now. They're having Casual Friday. They're live at this instant as we speak. So let me call them and see what we get. I'm dialing the number for the show.
Sam is not taking calls yet.
Okay.
Leave a message for Sam. Gotta jump.
Hi, Sam Seder. It's BlueOrange22, Thomas Carney. I'm on menarehumans.com live stream. We're actually making this week's episode about you and our conversation. If you would like to join us, or if you would like to join our live stream or connect our live streams, please call me back or please come to the website. I have sent you guys the link to the Discord and the YouTube. And, I feel we could do a much better job this time of having a proper discourse and a proper debate. So you're welcome to come by. Thank you. Well, you guys heard that. I got his voicemail. But yeah. We'll try in about an hour. Usually it's about 1 o'clock Eastern time. So 6 o'clock your time when they open up the phones.
Probably best not to let them tell them straight out that they're on our thing if they don't immediately start saying that we should connect the streams, because they're very dishonest people. And as you said, they were muting you and all sorts of things.
I'm absolutely convinced that they were tampering with my volume. I can't prove that per se, so I can't say I know for sure, but I've done many live streams, many phone calls, many videos, and I know what my laptop audio microphone sounds like. I'm doing hundreds of videos, from doing dozens of these weekly voice chats, so I know what my mic sounds like and doesn't like when I'm using my cell phone.
Maybe good for the viewers just to tell them how that would be.
There were times. There were times when I can tell that my voice didn't sound as loud as it should have. I'm using an iPhone XS to make the phone call. There's nothing wrong with the microphone because I use that phone every single day, and I've made hundreds of phone calls with it. And I listened from 2 separate computers, of which I'm very familiar with the audio levels and what they sound like when you listen to it. And based on that, I am convinced that the volume of my voice at certain times was not the volume that it should have been. But that's, even if that wasn't the case, the fact that of the way that you would treat a guest, someone's calling me in your show for a debate. When I called in, I wasn't looking for a fight. I was actually offering an olive branch. The approach I was going to go into was saying, listen, Sam, what's your thoughts of the men's rights movement? And he said, we think MRAs are lunatics. The message I wanted to come across was, there's a lot of left-wing and progressive men's rights activists. We're not a right-wing movement. We're not a left-wing movement either. We're a neutral movement. And we're simply an organization that wants to talk about issues that affect men and boys. We're not misogynists. We don't hate women. And we're completely willing to work with feminists who are willing to work with us. We're not against the principles of feminists. We are against certain actions. No, but this is the thing. Insane. We're not against the principle of equality. There are good faith feminists with good intentions.
Oh, of course.
I wouldn't.
It's just that you equated equality with feminism just there, and that's not what I believe at all.
I think that what I meant was, I think there are people who identify as feminists who genuinely have the best intentions for equality. They may be misled or brainwashed by some of the feminist social media accounts or organizations that they follow. But I think that there's a lot of feminists and MRAs who, if they were to have a productive dialogue, a civil dialogue, which is what I was hoping for, we would realize, hey, we actually have a lot in common. We shouldn't be enemies. And we might have disagreements about certain, elements of theory and patriarchy and male privilege and whatnot. But I think there's much more middle ground than a lot of people might see. At the very least, we should at least try and find it. When I called the Majority Report, it was the attitude of the three hosts. It was Sam, Emma, and Nomi were instantly hostile. They immediately went into the call not really listening, and I'm going to quote Cassie J here. They weren't really listening. They were just waiting for something to pounce on. Bill said that when she first started interviewing MRAs, she wasn't really listening to them. She was just waiting for an opportunity to make them sound bad instead of having a real conversation. And then she evolved as she talked to more MRAs. That's what I felt happened on the Majority Report. I was there. I wasn't there to fight. I don't like that abrasive, hostile debate style of who can cut you off faster, who can interrupt better, who can trap someone or get the gotcha. That's not how intelligent people talk. Could I have, raised my voice back? Could I have interrupted back? Could I have fought back? Well, no, because I think they were me to my volume. But can I talk that way? Sure. But that's not how I think intelligent people speak. I think that's lowering yourself. And that's not what I like to do. I don't like to lower myself when I have to.
It is how intelligent people speak. It's because she had an agenda and she was trying to set out to prove some kind of point that the MRAs are bad. And it is how intelligent people speak when they're trying to,
I don't think so.
demonize me. Well, it is.
I suppose it's how an intelligent, disingenuous person speaks.
It was incredibly theatrical the way they did it. If you watch it very carefully, you'll notice they do all sorts of little things, like one of them clicks the pen very dramatically and pretends to start taking notes. It's like the entire mood of the conversation changed in synchronicity the moment that you said you're an MRA. And they will, they are professionals at this, and we shouldn't assume they're stupid, because I really don't think they're stupid. I think they're disingenuous and manipulative, but not stupid.
I don't think they're stupid. You can be an intelligent person and have bad ideas. What I meant was that's not an intelligent conversation. It's a disingenuous conversation. It might be intelligent and smart from a tactical point of view if you're trying to just achieve a dishonest result. But if you want to have a true good faith intellectual conversation with a positive outcome, it's not an intelligent way of speaking. And I'm actually going to disagree with both of you, because more intelligent thing for Sam to have done.
Well, I think you just literally agreed. I think you agreed when you said that, we do think that it's a disingenuous way of speaking, but it's not a less intelligent one, because you have a point to prove and you're trying to get that across.
Let me tell you why I think it is an unintelligent way of speaking. Because the smarter thing to have done would have been for Sam to take the opportunity to maybe reach out to left-wing men's rights activists and gain more followers, gain more audiences. Instead of making himself an enemy, he could have tried to make himself an ally. If he really believes in equality, he offered an olive branch. I called in to try and offer peace. Say, listen, we're not against you. I actually do think it was an unintelligent way of talking, because an intelligent way of talking would have been trying to build a bridge rather than burn a bridge.
That's really the debate method that they always are going to fall back on, because their brand is built on outrage and affront. That's what they're always falling back on.
A truly intelligent person wouldn't have to fall back on that tactic.
That's not true.
That's just the whole foundation of their brand. They say, how dare you say you're not a feminist? If you're not a feminist, that means you hate women. And they're outraged at that. So if you say I'm, not a feminist, they come back outraged, and outrage is loud. I'm honestly surprised they didn't turn up your volume, so you sounded mean and aggressive.
I think in the first 5 minutes was actually pretty good in terms of them letting me speak. When it started out, they were letting me talk, and I was thinking, oh, okay, this is okay. And I think they were waiting for me to say something crazy. And I think that's why Sam said, can I be honest with you? You're a lunatic. I appreciate his honesty. I think the reason why he said that is he was waiting for me to explode or to say something extreme. And I think he was very surprised when I responded with, okay. That's your opinion. I've heard that before. That's not the response he was hoping for. And when they realized that I was there to be rational and to be calm and to have a conversation, that's when I think their tactics kind of shifted. Let's talk about some of the points that were brought up. One of the biggest criticisms I'm seeing in all the comments in the YouTube videos is how I failed to address definition of masculinity. Which is partially true because it's difficult to achieve giving a complete answer when your answer is cut off and interrupted. But I started saying that I feel a definition of masculinity could be described as the social patterns and expectations expected of men, which is when I was cut off. But I was going on, I was going to finish that answer because the second part of that sentence would have totally changed the answer. Because what I was going to say was masculinity can be defined as the social expectations based upon men. However, I personally don't like the idea of trying to find a narrow and definitive definition of masculinity because it's a social construct that constantly evolves over time. It's something that varies by region, by religion, by culture. So I feel it's kind of an absurd question. What is masculinity? I think a more intelligent approach would be to say, listen, we maybe don't have quite the answer to that yet. We're still making that journey as a species to really understand these kinds of questions. It's an ever-evolving question. So I'm uncomfortable with the idea of trying to produce an all-encompassing, definitive, concise definition of something that's a much more complex construct than just a 1 or 2 sentence answer.
And what would you say, if you were asked the same question, what would you say femininity is?
I would say exactly the same thing. It's equally as complicated and complex as masculinity. So I would say exactly the same answer. Now, to that point, I did say, if you took 1 million men and 1 million women, or 1 million boys and 1 million girls, and you followed them over 5 or 10 years, you might see that there are some statistical patterns and predictable trends. Men might be more likely to be interested in hunting. Women might be more likely to be interested in makeup and fashion. But it doesn't mean that you have to be confined to those roles. It doesn't mean that a man or a woman should be shamed not following those stereotypes. It just means that there does seem to be, and how much of it is biological and how much of it is cultural is debatable. And that's a very fascinating debate. I just think that, yes, you might see some differences between 1 million men and 1 million women. You might see some traits and some patterns emerge, and there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with a man who wants to wear makeup or a woman who wants to go hunting. There's nothing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. I just think that, yes, you will see some patterns and you will see some trends emerge, but to try and narrow it down as to why do you see those patterns and trends? Is it societal? Is it cultural? Is it evolutionary? Is it a neurological difference? Is it a psychological difference? Is it just nature versus nurture? It's a whole fascinating, complex debate, which is why I find the question, what is masculinity? Disingenuous question to demand a concise answer for.
I would have just said it's what men typically do, or something similar like that. Something very vague that they probably would have attacked me for, but I don't think that there's really a good answer, really, because masculinity is more of a spectrum than it is a actual solid thing. But we can tell that masculine men tend to be more stoic and tend to be more outgoing and outdoorsy and tend to value progress in terms of careers and objects and things like that, and they tend to be very objective focused. So they're whereas women tend to be more social and they tend to value connections between people a lot more than men do. That's not to say men don't value those things, but men value them in a different way, and they don't value them quite as much. A man can be quite happy on his own, but a woman who's on her own tends to feel, usually, as far as I've seen, a little bit disconnected and a little bit, a lot less happy than a man might be off trekking on his own through the woods and such. It's very, very subjective, and it's very, very dependent on the person. Some women are extremely outdoorsy and want to go off into the wilderness on their own and stuff like that. And some men are extremely girly. So it's like, there's really no hard and fast definition here. So, and honestly, I think demanding one is kind of a red herring. They were trying to derail you off of issues that you might have brought up, like circumcision and things like that. I think that pressing like issues was a bit of a mistake, like the prostate cancer and the what's the other one, pension ages, when you could have just kept hitting them with more and more issues. I think that would have been like a better defense against the accusation there. But
the thing is, I did bring up other issues, and I was just talked over. So they would what their style essentially was is I would begin an answer and I would start listing issues, but after the very first issue, they would cut me off and interrupt it. So they weren't listening. Again, they were just waiting to pounce. I listed the education gap, I listed the incarceration gap, I listed the homeless gap, I listed the unemployment gap, and they just didn't want to have a conversation. To me, it seemed like they didn't want to have a conversation.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I mean, I got that impression right from the beginning, where they treated you like some sort of monster that they were having to, like they were just putting up with you. And there were people in the chat saying, "Oh, here comes the far right" and stuff like that, and it's very, very, very stupid. And like their followers are the dumb ones, but they are, I think, master manipulators, and they are out to sell a narrative, which is what feminists usually do. If you listen to their behind-the-scenes talks, they're always talking about the narrative, and like changing the narrative, pushing the narrative, that sort of things. And what they mean is they're pushing a story. They're pushing an agenda. The narrative is basically a code word for propaganda.
And even some of the people in the comments were saying that, Sam, I'm a big fan of yours, and I agree with you on most things, but I really didn't like your behavior on this call. You kept interrupting him, and a lot of people were taking my side, even people who weren't agreeing with the men's rights movement. A lot of people were taking my side in the fact that, yeah, Sam and the two others, Emma and Nomi, were constantly interrupting me. And then the whole accusation when Nomi was saying, "Oh, it's misogyny, that was why I didn't want to talk to her." She made a comment, she made a joke about wanting to go and throw up when I brought up male victims of domestic violence. So did I lose respect for her at that moment? Absolutely. I lost all respect for her the instant she made such a disgusting comment, such a disgusting joke about such a serious issue. I mean, I brought up male victims of domestic violence, and her response was to joke about, "I'm going to go and throw up." And then she expects me to respect her after saying that? Why would I? And then she expects me to want to talk to her? Why would I? Why would I want to talk to someone like that?
I pretty much lost all respect at the moment they did that pen click, to be honest. And the lunatic thing, I was kind of expecting it to be bad, but I wasn't expecting it to be that bad. But I'm glad you managed to show them up, because I think that showing their fans what they're really like was pretty much the best thing to come out of that. Because when people are at their worst, that's when you see them most clearly, I think. It's this is the real them, and they are, unpleasant manipulators. So I think that if you can get on there again, in fact, if we can all try and phone into that show as much as possible, and maybe even don't say that we're MRAs, maybe just phone up and talk about various issues, and then maybe drop in that we're an MRA at the end. That might be interesting.
Let's just be careful that we're not harassing. I do agree we should try and be in more contact, but always make sure if you call them, be professional, be civil, and always act in good faith, which of course is what we are. We are a good faith organization. But we just don't want them to say, "Oh, look at all these MRAs bothering us." So I agree.
Hello. Can I just ask you, were you able to watch the video feed while you were on the call?
I was able to watch the video feed, but there is a lag, so it doesn't actually do a whole lot of good. It's about 60 seconds behind when you at least it was for my internet. Maybe for others it's instant. At least for my on my computer, there was a lag, so it wouldn't really help. So I wasn't really watching it.
It's probably an intentional lag for their editors.
Oh, I think we might have a lag too, actually. I think we have, I think our live stream on YouTube is about 15-20 seconds behind us in here. That is relatively normal to have a slight lag on YouTube. So I don't think was intentional.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I think that's pretty normal. But it's actually standard practice on live shows to have a small delay so that if something happens, they can cut it out. Or
do you know the story? Do you know why? I don't think there was an exact moment where that started becoming the practice. Do you know what it was?
Did somebody say something horrible on air?
It was Guns N' Roses. I'll try and find the video. It was either 89 or 90 at the VMAs, and Slash. I think it was Slash and Duff there, and they won whatever video they won. I don't know the exact date, but I'll post the video. Anyway, so Slash and Duff, they went up to stage and they were so drunk and they were just ripping off F-bombs left and right. And after that, all the networks put the minimum 7-second delay on live broadcasts, because there used to be, when you watch the Oscars or the Emmys or whatnot live in the 80s, it was instantly live. After that, now when you watch the Oscars or the Emmys, there's like a 10-15 second delay. It was because of Guns N' Roses. Slash and Duff, drunk on stage.
Foreseeable problems, to be honest. But yeah, okay, getting back on topic, is there anything else we should talk about just before Blue phones them again?
Well, I mean, there's other things I could address. I mean, first of all, I thought I don't think it was hypocritical. During the whole little exchange about pension ages, Sam cut me off by saying, I don't want to hear about pension ages in some random country. I just want to hear about the United States. But in that same paragraph, he used women's rights worldwide as an example. And he was saying, don't you think the overall net inequality worldwide? In the same paragraph is saying, I only want to talk about the United States. So he contradicted himself there, because what is it? Do you want to only keep the conversation to American politics, or do you want to talk about politics and social issues and inequality all around the world? So that was just another example of hypocrisy. And about the prostate cancer exchange, and I did a reaction video where I kind of break this all down, but his answer is so illogical when he was asking me, what's the age for prostate cancer? What's the age? And I finally answered, okay, well, it's 60 and above. And I was trying to actually answer him. I kept saying prostate cancer is the cancer, and they kept cutting me off. He said, oh, I know what it is, but just tell me what's the age. What I was attempting to say, if he had let me answer me fully, was that prostate cancer is the age that a man is most likely to die from in all age brackets over the age of 50. If that man is a non-smoker. The only cancer that kills men more, lung cancer, and 90% of lung cancers are caused by smoking. It's either 50 or 55 is the age where, at all brackets until indefinitely old, prostate cancer is the number 2 killer of non-smoking men. And he never let me say that, but he was basically saying that, well, the reason why Obamacare is is justified in ignoring male prostate cancer is that Medicaid covers men over the age of 65, and that might be true. But that might be true. But the thing is, like an what?
Hello?
5 seconds. Fucking shut up for 5 seconds. Hello?
Huh, what happened there?
Sorry, my neighbor is sorry, was knocking on the door. The reason why that argument doesn't make any sense is because even if a man dies at the age of 55 of prostate cancer, does it really make sense to not cover him under insurance because he's younger? So Sam's argument was saying, well, because men are more likely to get prostate cancer at the age of 65 or above, it makes sense for insurance to not cover a 55-year-old. So a 55-year-old goes to the doctor and the doctor says, sorry, because you're 55 years old and you're not statistically supposed to have this cancer right now, we're not going to cover you. Does that make any sense?
It doesn't, but it's possible that you could have gone for a more direct issue that's very, very easy to explain. Whereas prostate cancer might be one of those ones that people go, oh yeah, I'm not very interested in that. But saying something like 80% of all suicides are men, and we need to investigate this and we need to look into it. Or if he starts going on the right angle, then immediately go to circumcision and say, well, it's okay for, to strap down a baby boy and cut his foreskin off of a soldering iron all across America. And it's actually okay for the person doing the circumcision to rip it off with their teeth and to suck the wound, quote unquote, clean. And there's no law against it. You can do this to a baby on a kitchen table with no experience at all. It's you just lay into them with the most brutal stuff you can. Like most victims of genocides are men. They just line up the men and shoot them if they're lucky, or if they're unlucky, they bury them alive or burn them alive or something like that. That's Boko Haram's favorite tactic, is to burn little boys alive in schools after getting all the girls out. But you've got to really go for the throat, and if they question you, you've got to turn it into a question of them. You've got to make sure that they're on the defensive and you're not, because it's really, really dangerous to get into this situation where you're the one who constantly has to supply all of the answers, and they're just, sitting there from a position of authority, and you've got to go for that. Why does feminism stop any equal law trying? So I'm not phrasing that very well. Why does feminism attack equal laws that make it illegal for women to rape men? Like, why does it? Why is it trying to gender the domestic violence laws in the UK? Stuff like that. You've really, really got to go for their throat.
I think making a point about how in US a victim of rape or child sexual abuse, a minor boy, has to pay child support to his rapist or pedophile, should be a valid point in US, because that happens in.
Yeah, that's a great point. The entire reason he could say, oh, you don't actually have any issues, this is nothing, this is silly, all that sort of stuff, was because the issues raised were complicated things that need a lot of explaining, and because they're on the milder end of the rights issues. They're more to do with how much funding is given to male cancers and things like that. Whereas we've got to go for the direct human rights violations. Like he actually, I think if I remember rightly, he agreed with you on the draft, but then he just sort of slipped past that. And you've really got to nail them on that. You've got to say, oh, so you're an MRA, you agree with us.
The thing is, Emma even made the point of saying, well, the draft doesn't exist anymore, which is disingenuous for two reasons. First of all, selective service does still exist in the United States, and men can be prosecuted for not registering. Second point, and again, this is where Sam is hypocritical, is that conscription is actively practiced in countries around the world, other than the United States. So he wants to talk about the worldwide net inequality, but at the same time didn't want to talk about something that happened out of the US. So Emma saying the draft doesn't exist anymore is a falsehood.
It does exist. It's something that men have to sign on for just to get all of their rights. And they don't even have as many rights as women. So it's very much a thing which affects them now, even if a war with a draft hasn't been declared recently. I mean, it's very disingenuous to say that it's not a thing anymore, when what they're really saying is it hasn't been triggered since Vietnam. That's not the same as saying it's not existent anymore. As soon as America gets into a huge war that they're struggling with, like World War II, the draft will be back. Like that's not even a question. It will be back. I mean, the fact that they denied equality in the draft at the Supreme Court recently says that it's absolutely a thing, and it's absolutely something that could be triggered.
And, these are the kinds of complex issues that require a conversation and not a battle. And that's just why it was so disappointing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's just, I mean, I think they were cutting you off an awful lot, because there are some very telling silences before you were answering in a lot of those cases. Like, he would ask you a question, you'd go silent for several seconds, which, much longer than's normal for you. And then you would reply. And, although I think sticking doggedly to the issues that he was already denying was probably a mistake, because it allowed him to treat you like you were stupid and make you look stupid on air. And like a lot of people in the comments were, like the hardcore SJWs were saying that, you looked like an idiot on there. But they were making you look that way by not letting you answer. But at the same time, you really have to you have to focus on, key points so that you at least get some things through. Like really, really key points, like the genocide thing. It's it's you have to be very careful with it.
I think the woman on some woman on that show said that the children, taking care of children and all its responsibility falls under a woman. But at the end of the day, it was her choice to have kids. It was her choice to marry someone who couldn't take care of them. It was her choice by the end of the day. A man doesn't have that choice. And it's like a bad thing to have a kid. And if you're complaining about it, saying it's unfair, then just don't have children. It's not like someone was forcing them to have children or take care of them.
Right, yeah. Blue, do you want to start the call again and see if you can get through this time?
Let's give it a few. Let me actually go to their channel now. I'm going to put their channel on now, and we're going to listen. If no one minds, there's usually a moment where they announce if the phones are open. I will try and make a phone call. And see.
I think you should probably try and make the phone call first and then do that, because there's a good chance they've already said that.
Okay, this is their show right now. You're hearing in the background. They still have a guest on. Usually, people can take calls. They take calls during what's called the fun hour, and that usually happens after the guest. So let me mute them. Call again.
Sam is not taking calls
Nope,
yet.
not yet.
Fair enough. Okay. So we can keep on talking about this. We can keep talking tactics and things.
I just sent you I just sent you a DM. If you wouldn't mind, it's just about some audio issues in terms of the phone call and getting it on the YouTube channel. I just want to make sure that the phone call, once the stream goes public, if I have my phone on speaker, I want to make sure that it actually sounds good. So it's just a technical thing.
Oh, it sounds pretty good to me.
Just check the DM though. I just want to send you a link about how iPhone microphones sometimes don't record very well. But in terms of tactics for debating Sam, people like that, if they're gonna be disingenuous, they're gonna be disingenuous, and either he's willing to listen or he's not. And going into a debate with a list of tactics to try and counter someone disingenuous, to me, is lowering yourself. I don't like doing that. I want to have a real conversation and a real dialogue with someone. There's a YouTuber named Vaush who I have a lot of respect for, even though he's very anti-MRA. He's the one who debated Warren Farrell. And what I liked about their debate is, even though they were on pretty much polar opposite ends of the spectrum, they did find some middle ground because they made an effort to listen to what the other person was saying. And they weren't in there to make it a battle. It was a debate. It was a disagreement. They weren't trying to make it a battle. And they were willing to listen and understand what the other person was saying and why. And then relate that to themselves and their own beliefs. And then see, okay, what is it about this person's perspective that I agree with and like? And then what is it about this person's perspective that I don't agree with and I don't like? But it was honest. And they were enjoying it. I saw two people who were enjoying the discourse. They were enjoying the conversation. Rather than trying to make it a matter of who can win. We're both making an effort, not just to convince the other person, but also to learn. And that's what a good conversation to me looks like. I think an intelligent, I'm gonna double down when I say I don't think Sam's tactic is an intelligent tactic, because it doesn't leave any room open for learning. If you don't let your opponents, and even that word opponent, I would prefer to say debate partner, if you don't let them speak and express their ideas fully, then you are restricting your own opportunity to learn.
I don't think that was their objective, honestly. I think they were
Of course not.
authoritarians, and I don't think they wanted to learn because, as I said before, they've got a story to sell, not a set of facts to sell. So it's more about their objective being wildly different to yours that's causing you to think they're stupid. But I mean, I think they're a bit stupid, but I think the main problem is that they are incredibly disingenuous. And they know they're wrong. I'm pretty sure.
Well, someone being disingenuous isn't wrong, they're dishonest.
Well, okay, let me rephrase that. They know that what they're saying is incorrect and misleading.
Right, no, right. Sorry, misunderstood you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's move on, and we'll keep on talking. We probably
oh no, it's the fun hour.
The time that.
It's
is
the
it?
Fun
okay,
hour.
Cool.
Yep. Okay, let me try and call again.
Okay, go for it.
Hold on. I'm gonna put it on mute for 1 second. Let me just pull up the number again. Okay, I found the number.
All right.
I found here's the Funline number again. Okay, I think this is it.
All right, here we go then.
Oh, no.
Please leave a message for Sam.
Still no. Let's see what's going on in the show.
Well, that's very odd if they've announced it. Maybe they didn't flip the switch. But anyway, while Blue's doing that,
so I'll keep an eye on it. It'll be any minute now because I'm seeing on their live stream that they're saying, okay, we're getting ready to get to that part.
Okay.
Super Beats. God, this Super Beats. Are you guys getting this Super Beats commercial in the UK?
What?
It's this.
I don't have a TV, so. Anyway,
This Super Beats ad has been on every single video for the last 2 days. It is so unbelievably annoying. But I think it says something about the men's rights movement versus the feminist movement, about how we are very willing and open to have people come in and debate and talk, while feminists, when they have MRAs on, aren't willing to do that. They're willing to pretend that they're willing to do that by actually letting a guest on the show and listening to a few sentences here and there. But they're not going into it with the honest intention of an honest debate, whereas that is exactly what MRAs do. When we have a feminist come, when feminists come to this channel and to this server, our server on Discord has something called Coliseum. I mean, obviously you guys know that, but for any of you who are watching this, and the Coliseum is essentially a one-on-one debate structure where we debate feminists, and we take it very seriously. We listen to our debate partner, we listen to what they say, and we're willing to exchange ideas. You know, we're not looking to beat this person down. We're looking to have a dialogue with this person. And there's such a striking difference between how MRAs feel about that and how feminists feel about that.
I think it's been pretty successful. I'm surprised we've had that many feminists, because they usually prefer to stay in their own spaces and to not debate with people if they can help it. They prefer to yell at people, honestly. But Blue, when the phone call goes through, I've got a sneaking suspicion that they'll probably cut you off right away and end the call. So don't be surprised if that happens. But we will, try and get on there still. See if we can't get through. It's a shame we don't have a couple more people in America who could possibly call through and try and debate themselves. Unless anyone here is willing to give it a shot, where, if you put it on speakerphone, we're happy to listen in.
Well, Sam did say, whether he was being honest or not, who knows, he did say that he wanted me to call in again. Maybe he was just saying that to be a jerk, but he did say it, and I'll take him up on that.
All right, then. Well, hopefully he'll... if he cuts you off, then he'll probably look bad if anyone remembers him saying that. You might want to drop in that he asked you to call back, like, as early as possible in that. In any case, has anyone else seen the video in question? We posted it in announcements. Because unlike them, we're not frightened of discourse and seeing what our opponents are saying. Anyone? It was pretty entertaining, if nothing else. Now, honestly, I got very angry after watching it, so I couldn't watch it all the way to the end. But it was... I felt very bad for Blue, and I was just like, no, just the way they were treating him, it was awful.
It seems now they have. It seems now they have 2 guests on now, so I don't know. Maybe you can try going to their live stream chat again and seeing if they haven't blocked you or not. But it looks like the fun hour has not quite started yet. They have 2 other guests, so I'm not sure if they're taking calls. I would go on, but they blocked my account a long time ago. So
I'm afraid I can't do that because, it would mean interrupting the stream to do it at the moment. Next week, maybe I'd be able to do something like that as I'm getting my new setup done. But, Kathleen, did you want to say something?
I was going to ask Blue Orange, out of the different platforms you've reached out to, which one do you think has been the most hospitable? Because I know you've spoken, I think you were on the news as well.
I would say C-SPAN. The only 2 major national outlets that I've reached so far phoning were C-SPAN and CNN. Oh, sorry, C-SPAN and Majority Report. And C-SPAN have a very good reputation for actually listening and not interrupting people when they're speaking. Whereas obviously Sam didn't do that. So I would say C-SPAN. They let me talk. They didn't interrupt me. They were very neutral in their questions. And you can kind of see the host's face. I'll post that video in the link below. You can kind of see the host's face when I tell him I'm a men's rights activist. His face kind of like has a look of surprise. But then as I kept talking, it sounded like he was agreeing with what I was saying. But again, C-SPAN has a reputation for pretty much no matter what, they let their guest finish what they're saying. So even if someone is saying something totally crazy, they don't interrupt them and they do let them talk. But I would say C-SPAN is a very good show in general for that. And they took my call. They let me talk. And I've reached out to several other outlets and haven't really gotten a response. So as of now, it's just those two.
Yeah, I had a good impression of C-SPAN too. It was a good interview, even if the host seemed a little bit confused through it and like didn't seem to know what to do with you. But yeah, it was a very, very good call. He seemed like a very patient person, and he let you speak, and he didn't cut you off or anything. You actually managed to get the site on the news, so it's interesting, and I'm wondering if that gave us an uptick in views.
Did you get?
I was going to say, I think some of his confusion was because he was expecting something negative and hostile, but found himself agreeing with a lot of what I was saying and was like, wow, I have these thoughts too. And he's right. I do feel like I'm not really able to express them freely.
Yeah, my one criticism with that is you possibly made you sound a little bit like an alt-right sort of person, just with the phrasing. I know you weren't saying that, but the way you said it kind of implied it. Whereas, you've got to be very adamant with that sort of thing. So that's literally it. But the whole thing was very good. You gave a good impression, and you seemed very reasonable and nice. And I think you may have actually convinced a few people. It's hard to say how many, but I think that you might have opened a few eyes doing that. But obviously, it's very hard to tell what demographics watch C-SPAN. So, well, actually, they'd probably know. But Zayda, did you want to say something?
Yes. Did you get reply from that UK Men's Day organization?
Sorry?
Did you get a reply from UK's Men's Day organization, which you sent an email?
Oh, did I hear back from the men's organisation? No, sorry, I didn't. I haven't had anything from them.
I actually have a few email addresses of few Indian MRA. If we can also include them in our plan, it would be great. Can I send them to you later? Would you be willing to send them email, or do you want me to send them email?
Either is fine. I mean, if you want to talk to them, I mean, you're more local, so you'd probably know what to say a lot more than I would, and I don't know the local language or anything, so.
I mean, it's gentle in English. You can send it on English. But what I'm saying is, do I bring them in here, or to meet? I create a separate Indian server or something.
I'd be happy for you to bring them in here. I mean, this is an international server.
I think the major concern is they are from really different kind of organization. From our organization helping family men to organization that's collectively fighting against government for the rules. if I can bring them in, they have huge support and manpower in here. If we can just convince them for the plan on International Men's Day, it can surely make it a huge.
A lot of background noise going on with you there. But yeah, we should really keep on with this plan to do something big on International Men's Day. If anyone knows how to make some flyers or something, that would be really good. We really need a very, very international generic flyer that everyone can post, wherever.
I have a request for everyone. If they can contact a MRA organization in that country, and if we can all just meet up and come up with some resources, it can help everyone. Like the one with UK Men's Day, their plan is exactly same as our, but just on uh, national level. But their plan is exactly like ours. Like we were planning for stickers and posters. It seems they have already designed those things. So I was hoping if we could get in touch with them because it was exactly as our. And
Yeah.
if we
There's a
could
few good
just,
ones. But
I think if we could just bring in more support from different MI organizations, different countries, like I can get help from India. Maynard, you can probably bring support from in UK or something. I think if we can reach out to America, Australia, New Zealand, uh, or South Korea, it will be more effective thing to do.
yeah, good idea. I know of a couple. There's MAP, who seem like really nice people. You can find them on Twitter. There's also Men's Day Out in India. They seem like good people, at least as far as I've seen. Um, there's quite a few. So if everyone Googles up an organization that's local to them and has a chat with them and invites them to take part in the plan, that would be really, really good. Now really is the time to start talking about this and getting people involved with it, because November is coming up, even though we don't feel like it is. It feels very far away from a time period perspective, but this is all time we need to spend organizing and preparing so that we've got everything in place and ready before we go. We can't be like sending out flyers in November for people to put up. It's got to be something we do like, by October.
I think just let's get to it. I will just tell you a few organization I have in mind, and and anyone who has any idea or can think of any other organization could please DM me or Maynard Human.
Yeah, please do. If you've got any suggestions or you're going to contact someone yourself, that would be good. Blue, I guess you're still watching their stream to the magical moment. It's kind of awkward waiting. I was expecting us to be like already done with the call by this point. It's 20 past 6, so.
But I should probably tamper your expectations because, we may not get a call at all. I mean, they may not take a call again from us. Kind of the reason why I wanted to have this stream was to put it out there that, we'd like to communicate again. But I sent him an email. He invited me in the video. He actually gave me his email address and said, send me an email. And I sent him an email that very same day. And so I did my part of the bargain.
Yeah.
Ball's kind of in their court. I mean, if they're not taking calls right now, they're not taking calls right now. I can try again. I don't think so. And, I mean, at the same time, it's like we're not entitled.
Calls yet.
Yeah. I can call it. We're not entitled to being given airtime. The thing is, a lot of his own supporters and his own followers were saying they were disappointed in how the conversation went, and that they wished it had gone better, and that Sam interrupted too much. So his own followers were saying that. So, and I got messages actually, because people went to my channel, and I got a few emails from people saying, "Hey, listen, I kind of agree with you that he interrupted you and he was rude to you, and I kind of wish that he hadn't done that, and I kind of wish that they had let you speak more." And even from people who were not MRAs were saying that, it's not that I agree with you, but it's that I do agree with the fact that you were interrupted and treated unfairly and rudely as a guest. So, and that was coming from some of his own people.
Well, that's good. That's the sort of thing we want. We want people to start questioning what they're doing.
You go to the video they did when they posted the clip of my conversation. I'm going to link it right now. The top comments are all his subscribers and his cronies getting upvoted. But if you sort by new, right, and you just scroll down, a lot of people say exactly that. A lot of people are saying that they were very unimpressed with their behavior and very unimpressed with their decorum, and that it was unprofessional and rude. Rude is the word I get a lot.
Yeah, that's not something we do on this channel unless you are being an absolute dick, really. The only way to get us thrown off this channel is to be disruptive and to say things that are liable to get the Discord itself in trouble. That's really the only two criteria here, as long as you're not being rude and you're not being unpleasant. There's absolutely no way a feminist who talks like you did on that show would get thrown off of this Discord. And it's certainly not off of this voice chat.
Oh, we would talk to them.
Yeah, we would talk to them. I've been trying to get one on here. That would be mission accomplished for us. It would, we want to engage with people. We want to change people's minds. We also want to nuance our own views and ensure that we're telling the truth ourselves, because we don't fear the truth here. The thing is that if the feminists are right in saying that men aren't discriminated against, men aren't under attack, men don't have problems with domestic violence, that would actually be good news for us. But we know that that's not the case.
I like how you phrased that we don't fear the truth. I think they were afraid of me on that show.
Absolutely. I'm surprised they didn't throw you off the moment you said you were an MRA, to be honest. It was, but I mean, obviously shows like that thrive on drama. So, if they could have made you look bad, then, they win. So, really they have to, like that's why they were being so theatrical with it, like the pen clicking and the shaking of the heads and the sneering and the calling you a lunatic to your face and things like that. Oh, I don't want to be rude. I wasn't going to be rude, but I think you're all a bunch of lunatics. Gee, you didn't want to be rude, huh? Yeah, that's not how you don't be rude. I mean, even if we're talking to feminists, we wouldn't call them lunatics to their faces. It's just downright rude. We think some of them are lunatics. We don't think all of them are lunatics. We think a lot of them are misled. We think a lot of them are in feminism because they think it's the only equality movement there is. and we can show them there are other equality movements, and they don't have to be involved in one with such a toxic structure as feminism. Like, I like to put people onto egalitarianism instead of, if they're hostile to men's rights, or, I don't want them to feel like I'm recruiting them. So I'll say, well, there's our movement and there's egalitarians and so on. It's not, we win regardless of whether or not they become an MRA, because if they're an egalitarian, that's basically the same thing anyway. They're fighting on the right side. Have I dropped audio again? Oh.
Well, I'm checking the channel again now to see where they are. I mean, how would anybody feel about having an episode of a weekly chat next week or whenever of a mutual live stream debates with their channel and ours?
Oh, I would be all for that. That would be awesome, especially once I've got my proper mic set up. That would be great. I'd happily get up a list of issues that we can talk about, and we can find some common ground. Maybe we've got an entire wall of studies we can throw at them. That sort of. It'd be very helpful for us to be in an environment where we can actually post these studies without them being censored off YouTube or something.
But that's exactly it. Do they have the courage to go to a platform that they don't have control over?
Let's exit out. Yeah, I really, really don't think that they'd go for it, because they thrive, feminists generally thrive in an environment where they can control information flow. That's the only way they can really survive, is to control information as tightly as possible, and at the same time make it look as much as possible like they're not doing that. That's why they invaded academia. That's why they invaded the CDC. It's entirely based on controlling the flow of information. They go after the media. They go after everything. The reason the media is so in favor of their ideology isn't because it's right or because it's attractive. It's because they invaded these spaces and they subverted them. And they made it so that their ideology can't be questioned within those spaces.
And I get this all the time when feminists post, academic studies, and they say, "Oh, but look, this is an academic study from someone with a PhD in sociology." It's still a self-invented theory. Someone with a PhD still come up with total nonsense and then attach their degree to it and their title to it and then call it real science. But that doesn't mean that they're right. You can go to college and study gender studies, sociology, and get a college degree. Then you can write an essay or a thesis and then say, well, see, look, an actual scientist came up with this idea because they studied sociology and they have a PhD in it. So therefore they're a legitimate scientist. And so therefore this is a legitimate idea. Doesn't mean they didn't just make up a bunch of nonsense. You can have a PhD and still make up a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, there's an entire circle of academic writers who are basically verifying each other's work. If you look into feminist papers, you'll find they're very, very circular in their citations, and they don't actually have that many citations. You click through, and often they're citing something Michael Flood said, or that Reese guy, whatever his name is, and they're basically, they're treating these people as if they were just manufacturing facts, basically. So you look into these papers, and there's really nothing to support them. There's no academic rigor. I found this out trying to research the manosphere. If you look into the manosphere citations, they will say something very, very, direct, and they'll, make it like clear there's like some sort of link between MRAs and the far right or something. But then you go into their actual PDF file and like all their actual like research, and you'll see they're freely confusing MRAs with other movements. They don't actually understand what we are. They don't actually have any real data. And what they're actually saying is that MRAs and like other groups use similar tactics, which is like saying they all breathe air. Like they all use memes. Like that's their evidence that these groups are linked. They're all using memes. But left-wing groups use memes, right-wing groups use memes, your mother uses memes. That doesn't mean they're all linked. It's this kind of flatist logic where they draw artificial lines between different things and they try to make them line up with their ideology, when what they're really doing is manufacturing papers that they can then cite. It's very disingenuous. Blue, I'm guessing they haven't unleashed the call button yet.
Let me check now and see where we're at. This is actually my first time listening on a Friday, and their Fridays are casual Friday apparently, and so I'm actually not 100% sure how their casual Fridays work. I'm looking at their channel on mute. They still have 2 guests on. Let me dial, see what we get. Hold on.
Sam is not
Yeah.
taking calls yet.
Nope.
Please leave a message for.
Still, but he has my email and my voicemail, so. But
Yeah,
this makes me think. Let's not just talk about this one show. There are so many different shows, and networks, and media outlets that we could be reaching out to. And between this and the CNN call, now we do have a little bit of international exposure and platform. So let's get ourselves out there as much as possible. Does anyone else here? I mean, does anyone else know of any channel or show or network or TV station or newspaper or anything that you could think about reaching out to?
It's I don't really listen in on those things, so I'm probably not the person to ask. But does anyone else have any?
How about Steven Crowder?
Oh, that's a good idea. He's actually on our side pretty much. I'm not sure how much, but he's definitely sympathetic.
Is on our side, but Steven Crowder, I actually made a video called Steven Crowder is a Bad MRA, where I kind of denounced him. I find that even though he is sometimes on our side, he's also sometimes overly toxic, and I actually do think that he is a racist. And I did a video breaking down one of his videos. I even though he might agree with us that he's anti-SJW, I think he's a toxic and narcissistic person, and he's not someone I want to be associated with. And I don't use that lightly. I don't say that unless I think it's true.
I think he's a bit of a he's very much conservative. I mean, we don't have to be aligned with them. I think we go to their show, put forth an argument in some issues that we oppose them, find some middle ground.
I've seen him talking to black people, and I've seen him talking to all sorts of people, and I think that he's not a racist. He's just kind of an edgelord. I mean, that's generally my impression of him. Like he'll have.
Do we really? I mean, do we really want to be associated with an edgelord? I mean, I always say any platform you can get, you should get, and any exposure you can get, you can get. So if we can get a phone call on Steven Crowder, as we could. But of course, he's going to hear this, and if he watches my channel, he's going to see my video of me calling him out. And I'm not willing to take these comments or statements back. So would he still have me on? That's something to think about.
Well, actually, I think he would. As far as I've seen, Crowder will talk to basically anyone. I mean, he doesn't seem to like. He'll talk to people who are screaming in his face, and he'll just keep on talking in the same level of voice. I mean, that's actually one of the reasons people are so ready to listen to him. Is he doesn't shout back, and he will listen to people even if they're absolutely insane. So, you know, I say give it a go. I don't think you've got anything to lose calling in. And the chances of him researching your channel and all that sort of stuff, you know, so thoroughly, he finds this channel and finds this video and, you know, watches all the way through to hour 2.5 to hear you calling him out is fairly unlikely. The chances are he'll probably just watch a couple of your videos if he watches anything at all, and then agree to you on that basis.
I want to ask you guys something. What do you think about Milo Yiannopoulos?
I honestly don't think anything of him.
Hate him. I can't stand him. Milo is insane. He's an embarrassment. So I'll be very strong about that. He's an embarrassment.
I actually don't really like him associating with MRA in particular, but I think he's kind of like poison. But he's like some kind of poisons that curse other poisons like the feminist. Now, I really don't agree with him and oppose him in lots of points, but I think he's quite entertaining, to be honest.
I mean, it's funny to watch someone being totally crazy sometimes, but I agree with you. He is a poison. He makes us look bad. So I would 100% distance myself from Milo.
Well, I haven't really seen anything of him except that I know that he triggers a lot of people. So, I mean, I'm actually quite interested to see what he's like now because you've all been talking about it. I mean, I've heard that he's good at rhetoric, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is right or anything like that. So it's
He's called the Platinum Troll. It suits him perfectly.
Sorry, what?
He's called the Platinum Troll. It fits him perfectly. He's the kind of a person that's his latest stunt is about converting gays into straight people, and he himself is gay.
Yeah, and he calls himself he's gay, and I don't recall exactly, but a few years ago, he used to call himself like conservative faggot or something. And what, Kathy, you know what I'm talking about?
He says he's ex-gay now. He said he went to conversion therapy.
He's a troll. I mean, he's just I think he's just a troll. I think
a year ago, he said that he's no longer gay. So I don't know if anything that comes out of his mouth is like real. I think he's trying to get a rise out of people.
I agree. Yeah, I think he's a troll.
But it's not very effective for any platform.
He's a troll. He says a bunch of nonsense. He tries to be provocative and offensive on purpose. I agree with Kathleen. He just tries to get a rise out of people. He's a troll.
I'm not sure how somebody could go into counselling and come out liking boobs if they didn't like them before. So I'm pretty sure that this is a troll. That's where he's a bisexual and he's somehow convinced himself that he's not gay anymore. But, you know, if that sort of thing happens. Anyway.
Don't worry, he's kidding. He's making a huge fun or a response out of people. I don't think he's actually doing it. If you have seen him from a debate and all, his MR in some particular fields overall, but he's someone you cannot categorize or put in any particular group. If in some way you can say he's racist, he's a troll, and on the other hand, sometimes he can be quite serious and all. I don't think we can categorize him. And what do you guys think of Jordan Peterson?
Oh, Jordan Peterson seems
earlier
like a
stuff.
nice guy.
Yeah, I like some of his earlier stuff. I haven't kept up with it of late, though.
I think a lot of what he says is true. I don't agree with everything, but I think he's sincere, and I think that his ideas are well thought out. So even when I don't agree with him, and I do agree with a lot of things that he says, I think that he's honest in his beliefs. I think that when you listen to Jordan Peterson speak, really believes what he's saying. He's not trying to get a rise out of people. He is trying to provoke people to think. He's trying to get people to think about things, but I don't think he's trying to antagonize people. So overall, he's someone that I would say I agree with a lot of what he says. I don't agree with everything that he says, but he's someone that I would respect as an intellectual.
Well, I don't agree with everything Blue says, so it's kind of, it's not. Yeah, I don't think you have to agree with everything somebody says to like them. Honestly, it's I like him. He seems like a nice guy, and he eternally has my respect for that interview with I think Kathy Newman, where he absolutely turned her into a meme. Well, she turned herself into a meme to a large extent, but he helped a great deal by not falling for her tricks and things like that. It was very entertaining to watch. I think we need more like him.
Currently, I think he's being referred to as the Red Skull or Nazi by Marvel Comics writer or and the left.
I didn't catch most of that. Were you talking about Newman or Peterson?
I think we are talking about Jordan Peterson. I think right now he's being associated with or called as Red Skull or Nazi by the left in a Marvel comic. Have you guys heard of it?
Yeah. I think because of the Newman thing, a lot of feminists tried to smear him. So he was like they tried to push this reputation on him that he was alt-right and that he was like seducing young men down the dark path. And there was actually a recent Captain America comic where the Red Skull was basically had this sort of parody, like 12 Rules for Life book that he was releasing. And it's supposed to be like associating with Jordan Peterson with Nazis and things like that. It is absolutely ridiculous. 12 Rules for Life is just a self-help book. That's it. It's just like make your bed. It's a lot of it is. I mean, I haven't read all of it, but what I have read of it is just sort of, it's just basic life advice. So it's nothing sinister. But they don't like him because he criticizes their agenda. He's very effective at it. He's very entertaining at it. And he's got that really distinctive voice that sort of draws people in and makes them want to listen. So, yeah, I think that's really why they hate him, is because he's an effective opponent. Which is typically what they do with everyone who opposes them. They try to tear them down. Like they did with Blue. Any others that we could talk about while Blue's just waiting for this thing to go on? It's going to be very funny if we find out that they don't actually do it on a Friday.
I'm still watching now. I'll give you guys a very brief. This is right now what's happening live.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, they're just talking about they're talking about Bernie Sanders, not talking about any kind of a men's issue. But they have two black men on, and they're talking about societal problems in the United States economically. And I would love to make the point that how black men are not only affected by men's rights issues as well as white men. Black men are affected by men's rights issues even more so than white men.
Yeah, they are.
And we've talked about this before, and this has come up in several of the NCFM discussions that we've had. Black men are hit by a double whammy when it comes to male issues. Domestic violence, incarceration, homelessness, employment rates, unemployment rates, education, healthcare, life expectancy. So it's such a shame that the radical feminist progressive sphere of politics has brainwashed a lot of black men to following feminism, when I think the men's rights movement has so much more to offer, and the black women too. I think so much harm has been done to the black community by the disenfranchising of the father in the American family unit. And I know people will say, oh, this sounds like you're being a traditionalist. I'm not a traditionalist. I don't have any problems with single parents. I think a single parent can absolutely raise a child very successfully. I have no problem with a same-sex couple. I think a same-sex couple can raise a child successfully. I think that if you had an ideal situation, and this is something that Vaush and Warren Farrell debated, two parents can raise a child in a way better than a single parent, not because there's anything wrong with being a single parent, because now you have two people dividing.
I think there's something wrong with it. I honestly think there's something wrong with it, because most of society's problems seem to stem from single parenthood. But dual parenthood, as long as there's two of them.
I agree that having two parents is better than one, only because now you have two hands instead of one, right? Or four hands instead of two. So it's not insulting a single parent. There are many people who were raised by single parents who are very successful. Absolutely no disrespect whatsoever to a single parent. But it's better to have two people than one person doing a difficult job. And I think in the black community, there has been a disenfranchisement of the father that I think has been detrimental. And I think a lot of problems, and this is Abba and Preach have talked about this before in the past. They've said that, the lack of a father figure is harmful. The lack of a male role model is overall harmful. And it's not that two lesbian women or a single mother can't raise a child successfully. It's just that overall in society, I don't think that children today have enough successful male role models. And that's true of schools too. The vast majority of school teachers are women. And there's nothing wrong with a female teacher. But I would like to see more of a balance, more of an equal balance of male and female role models.
If you look at statistics like educational attainment and things like that, and levels of depression and mental illness, it's advantageous to have a two-parent home in that way as well. Obviously, there may be a lot of contributing factors. It might not all be causation. It could be correlation. But it's definitely statistically, a child will have an easier time to success if they have two parents.
It's one of the best predictors of literacy and lack of being in prison, not being a teen mother or father, and so on, literacy, education, everything. I will say that I think that if you are a single-sex couple, then if you have a child of the opposite sex, you really need to get in a role model for that child of the child's gender, because I feel like if you're a boy growing up with two lesbian mothers, you really need a male role model. And likewise, if you're a young girl growing up with two gay men, you need a female role model who can help, basically, just fill in the blanks and help you with things that like a gay man isn't going to be able to help them with like the tampon issue and things like that. They're not really going to be able to, they just lack that sphere of knowledge. They're not going to be able to sit them down and talk about their period and things like that. And it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to talk about dating and things if they just don't have the experience from that particular point of view. So I think it's quite important for there to be at least a role model who is constantly around the child, who has, is every week they have some sort of, interaction with them like a third parent. I think that is the ideal situation if you're a single-sex couple. If you're man and woman, obviously it doesn't apply, but I think it would help for them to have other role models anyway. So you need the child to have a lot of good positive influences surrounding them. So that's just my general opinion on it. I will say that I'm very skeptical of the idea that single parent households will, on average, produce good results, because of obviously all the stats that suggest that like 98% of people in prison are from single parent households. So it's I think that's very much it. But one other thing, last thing I will say is, I think we need to start thinking of gender as the main cause of social problems, and then race and sexuality and things like that as multipliers, rather than as in an intersectional way. Kathleen, you want to say something?
Yeah. What people's backgrounds like being raised were here, since we're talking about, family backgrounds. I know, so I had a 2-parent household, but when I was kind of in my early teens, my mother passed away. So my father became a single father, but I mean, I was pretty sufficient at that point. Has anyone here been like raised since a young age in a single parent household that is willing to speak about it?
First of all, no, and I'm extremely sorry to hear that.
It was a long time ago. It's okay. I grew from it. I really did. I'm not traumatized.
Oh, but the closest I can say is that my father used to drive a motorcycle, and this was so long ago. I think I was either in 8th grade or freshman year of high school, but my memory is hazy. But he was in a really bad accident, and he was in a coma for 2 days. And miraculously, he made a full recovery with absolutely no brain damage. But for those 2 days, it was very, very scary. I was forced to kind of meet the idea, what if my father were to die now? What if I were to not have a dad anymore? And it was such a terrifying thought.
Yeah, that is pretty scary. I guess he made it out pretty all right then.
Yeah, he sold the motorcycle and has never done it since.
I think our preparation, it was kind of a long process. My mother was very ill, and I was honestly a lot closer to my father. I'm much more like my father than I was like my mother.
Yeah. To be honest, I think the life lesson here is don't ride a motorcycle, honestly.
Well, Kathleen, and I actually agree with Ma. I will never have a motorcycle. I will never go skydiving, and I will never go scuba diving. But Kathleen, do you want to talk more about this? I mean, I don't want to. If you don't, that's fine. But I mean, do you want to?
If you think it's relevant, I have no problem talking about it. I do. When you're saying I would never ride a motorcycle. I do scuba dive, but I think there are certain things you should give up. Like if you get married or have children, there are certain high risk things you should give up at that point because you have a family to look after.
Well, you're absolutely welcome to share anything you want to share about that. It's totally up to you. As for scuba diving, the reason why I don't scuba dive, it was a kid named Joey Grosso. He went to my cousin's high school, and we actually played football against each other, and he was going to be a big NFL star, and he died in a scuba diving accident when he was 22 years old. He went down, and he went back up, and he died. And it was a very kind of tragic thing. So personally, I don't think human beings belong underwater, and so I think it's something that we shouldn't do. Anyway, so Kathleen, if you want to talk more about your experience being raised by a single parent. It's up to you.
I think it's kind of a complicated situation. I don't know if it would really apply to everyone. You were just talking about scuba diving. My mother was actually a scuba diving instructor. And she traveled the world. She owned a little Cessna plane and had a license. And when I was really young, my mom was in a really terrible car wreck. And she spent almost 3 years in bed. And she just never really woke up or like interacted with me. I was an only child. She really changed after the accident. And they found some tumors in her brain, and she just very slowly declined. So I think that I was just much closer with my father always growing up. I interacted with him a lot more because my mother was so sick. But I mean, I always had someone there. My mother was a much more emotional person, though, than my father. Like, my mother, I think I really learned to appreciate being in touch with your own self-pity and controlling it in certain ways. Because the whole time my mother was dying, which was, a 5 or 6 year period, my mother felt very sorry for herself. And she just wasn't the person that I knew anymore. She wasn't the person that scuba dived and traveled the world. She wouldn't get out of bed. And it wasn't just because she was so sick. She also was very afraid of dying, and she became bitter. And I think I just learned from that experience that I don't want to be the kind of person that lives in self-pity and thinks about my own self-pity so much that I forget to tell the people around me that I love them or to really do what I want to do. And my father is much more like that. My father's like, well, what's the solution? Pin your shoulders back and face it. Take full responsibility. And I think it was just, it was difficult in my household because my mother needed much more sympathy than me or my father knew how to give her. So, when she died, it was honestly almost a relief in our household because it was just such a long, drawn-out thing.
That's honestly a very sad story.
But, I mean, I think it made me a lot of who I am, but I think I can handle some situations other people can't now because of that.
It certainly sounds like it's a big part of your personality.
It is, and I do admire the person I am. Like, I admire the things I stand up for, and I don't know if everyone in the world really appreciates those things anymore, but I think that's a big part of that. And I had other very strong women in my life. I was a competitive figure skater, and I had a great coach that I was always around. There was a woman that I nannied for, and I took care of her horses and did all this stuff. So I had other very strong women in my life, which I think is important. But I definitely was not close with my mother, at least towards the end of her life. But her personality just completely changed, honestly. Sometimes illness and injury can make people horrible people. I know a man who was in a golf cart accident. And he was a lovely, lovely man before with a family, and he became a paraplegic, and he's just an asshole now, and he chased his whole family away. Some people do that. And I never want to do that if I'm ever in a situation like that.
Yeah, some people just blame everyone and hate everything and just don't want to deal with it, and other people accept it, and they let it not become a part of them, but become something that they understand is just there and they have to deal with. Yeah, that's a pretty sad story, but at the same time, you do seem to have a lot of very exciting and interesting interests, like figure skating, horses, and hawks and parrots and all that sort of stuff. If you do fencing as well, I wouldn't be surprised.
I really briefly actually did. My husband does Eastern fencing now. But honestly, I had great parents. And my mother, especially when I was young, she was a great person. But she was so limited by the things that happened to her health that it just all fell away from her. My parents bought me any book I ever wanted growing up. I remember I asked for like a $400 zoology textbook when I was in grade school, and my parents bought it for me. My parents bought me a glass kiln to fuse glass when I was like 12 years old. Who does that? So my parents really supported all my interests and, really let me learn and be a diverse person. I had great parents. I just think I learned a lot more about my values through my father, and my mother was not the same person that I really admired towards the end of her life.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. $400 textbook and a glass furnace. That's in the $1,000 range plus. Like for a good one, you're talking like $5.
That was actually after my mom's accident, but she got me into a glass school, and she had to come and like sit through all the classes because I wasn't technically old enough to take them, and she did go sit with me. So I wouldn't say it was abusive. Like lots of people I think have worse situations than that. They're being actively abused and things like that. I just think I became a little disenchanted with certain personality types and traits in people. And instead of, hating people like that, I've just really steeled myself that I'm not going to be that way.
Oh, I'm really glad, and I'm glad they supported your hobbies and interests and things. It'd be interesting if you could post some of your glass work if you still do it.
Yeah, art section I think I have before, and I also do a lot of beadwork still. I haven't fired up my glass kiln since I've been up here in Michigan, but I can find some stuff.
Do you do slump forming?
Can you repeat that?
Do you do slump forming?
So I do fusing and slumping. I also can do hot work, like lamp work, and blowing, but I don't own that equipment. So I do slumping. My kiln is pretty small, so I can do like slumped bracelets and like small bowls, but not really big pieces. I'm surprised you know so much. Do you do glass work?
I don't like to talk about my hobbies, honest, but I have done some. But yeah. I was never that good at beadwork. My beads always exploded. It's like, they'd look not very good, and then they'd break anyway. So.
Were you annealing them? Did you have an annealing collar? I'm assuming you were doing lamp work if you were doing beads.
Yeah, it was lamp work. I was doing it with somebody else. They were just getting me to put it in a bucket of these insulated beads, and I'm assuming they were. I was only ever trying it out with them, to be honest, so I don't really know. But their beads seem to come out okay, so I'm assuming they did it all right.
You just needed a little more practice. I'm sure if it was something you loved, you would have been great at it eventually.
Oh, I was a lot better at flatbed kiln forging. Kiln, stuff. I can't remember the technical term, but yeah, I made plates and things like that for a while.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's very similar, like cold work, where you're not manipulating glass when it's hot.
Yeah. I tried a little bit of grinding and stuff like that, but honestly, I've never liked the idea of the tiny glass particles. I was the only one who wanted to wear a dust mask, and it's like people didn't really seem to get that this stuff is at least as bad as asbestos.
It is, and the fiberglass you put on kiln shelves. Even worse is the people that do the cabochon making with the rocks, like the stonework. Some of that dust is like poisonous. And I am on a Facebook group for lapidary, and they're like, people will be like, hey, you shouldn't be grinding that up. They like buy it on eBay, and they're like, that one's poisonous.
Yeah, you have to be very, very careful with glass. It's full of lead and all that sort of stuff. Like they stick arsenic in it, and it is really nasty stuff before you even start to consider that it's a fine particulate that's very, very, very sharp, and so it can cut away at your lungs and things. But anyway, we've kind of gotten off topic, I think, right, quite massively. But we should probably get back on the topic.
That's fine, being off topic. I just called the Sam show about 30 seconds ago to check, and they're still not taking calls. their guests are off the show, so now it's just Sam and Emma. So I just called, and some of their commenters in their live stream are asking, "Hey, are we going to the fun hour now?" The fun hour is when they can do free calls. So let's stay on a little bit longer because maybe they're going to do that. But I called about a minute ago, and I got the same automated message about not taking calls. So yeah, let's stay on a little bit more and just kind of see what happens. I'm going to let you guys hear what I'm hearing.
Could you turn it up a bit?
It's still just that. They're still usually once their guests leave the show, they go to their fun hour where they have people calling in. And Sam did say he wanted me to call in again. And yeah, again, the ball's in his court.
All right. We can't really it was very low mumble. We couldn't hear anything. So if you're going to play the video, I would crank up those speakers as loud as they'll go. Although that might be.
Yeah. Okay, I can do it because my speakers are at 40%, so I can turn it louder. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we might want to have a test of that before you go live. I'm not actually sure how you'd. You might want to think through how you're going to, send us the audio for this. If it's going to come through your laptop or what, because it might be the best if you went to another room or something, let your laptop record the audio. Send the audio through the stream or something.
It was just the volume was set low, so I can fix that.
Okay, sure. All right then. While we're waiting, is anyone else got any interviews they want to talk about? Obviously, me and Kathleen could probably talk about art-related stuff all night, but let's see. What have we got? What issues can we give Blue to talk about that we haven't already mentioned? Right, what can he say to them on the show? Anything good? Any snippy, snappy lines he can say, maybe? Right, looks like it's pretty quiet at this point. Normally we've clocked off by now, so I don't blame the people who are zoning out here, but Sid?
Yeah, I was just about to say I would have interrupted or said my 2 cents, but believe me, I am too tired. Yeah, I really don't have any power to make points. Just that's why I was just listening. I'm sorry.
Fair enough, Sid. It's fine, Sid.
Though I do have to say, Blue Orange is rather kind. Somebody like me, I would not be as kind as he is, especially considering all this men's rights activism. That's why I usually do not associate or identify myself. I associate with the wrong word here. I do not identify myself as an MRA, but instead a MGTOW because, well, I'm much more aggressive. I need vengeance, not equality.
Yeah, probably for the best. We've got to make sure that we're public facing and we're not putting on a Nazi so that people can then use to say, see, they're Nazis. It's we have to, when we call into these people, we have to be the nice ones. We can't be the the screaming at them and stuff like that. We can't be seen as being unpleasant because people will go away thinking that means that all MRAs are unpleasant, because honestly, that's really how people think, to be honest. It's kind of unfortunate, but they'll see one bad example of one person stepping out of line, and then that person will define the entire movement for them. And it's, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I was not saying that in that regard. I mean, I was saying that in his ideas. His ideas are basically talking about an equality which assumes that women will do their part. Because you know what? I've heard this from, I think it was, who was that guy? I forget the name, but the opinion was that the current feminist movement or female liberation movement, it stems from 1965 with the innovation of birth control, which is a reasonable argument. Women got the freedom to have sex as much as they want with how many people that they want, and there will be no repercussions with that. What they did with that outcome or that resource was not only socially destructive, but the repercussions had to be paid by men. And I was thinking, what's the counter to that? What did the 21st century do for men on equivalence with the birth control? And that would be porn. We have a lot of porn. We have a damn lot of porn. Free porn of all shapes, sizes, and lengths. Men did not leave women because of porn. Men did not degrade women because of porn. Men did not do anything drastic just because they have access to free porn. Women got access to something on that level, and look where the society has brought us. All the protections that we instilled in the laws so that the few bad men cannot abuse righteous women. They took all of those steps and tried to use them with as much possibility and as much aggression as they could against men of all walks of life.
I think it's a bad idea to start blaming all women for things. We need to realize that they've been, like, feminism has very much been like a brainwashing tool in regards to the pill and things like that. And I would not say that porn has had no negative effects on men. In fact, I think it's probably been a pretty bad influence on men generally. But I honestly think that society is decaying because of both things. I think those are two very bad things that what the way they've been used has been very bad anyway. It's certainly, I agree with you that they have been misused for like casual sex and things like that, which has like lowered like people's ability to have meaningful relationships and things like that. Porn is something that reduces your ability to have a meaningful relationship.
Yes, porn has been harmful to men. That harm has not been transferred towards women. Birth controls, well, not exactly that harmful to most women. Maybe some women, maybe in some cases, it is a medical thing. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
There's a really screechy noise in your background that's very, very loud.
Just a second, I'll fix it.
Anyway, yeah, it is pretty bad. Blue, could you give us an update?
What are y'all talking about?
Okay, let me go right now to the channel. I check about 8 minutes ago or so, and it was the same as it was before. So we'll see. Hold on, give me a few seconds. Are still live. Oh, okay. The two guests are gone, so maybe it's the fun hour. Let me call, see what happens. Dialing now.
Sam is not taking calls yet.
Nope.
Leave a message for Sam.
Same thing.
Damn. Well, maybe they've got a schedule
Are
on
you
their
sure?
website.
Are you not blocked?
Who are you calling, Blue?
We're trying to call the Sam Sater show, the Majority Report. I was on his show about 4 days ago, and it was a very, honestly, awful mess of a conversation.
It was a train wreck.
It
You
was
make a mess of that shit, to be fair. I watched that and I was like, oh no.
Well, to be fair, he was muting my microphone at certain points, and it was very much twisted and manipulated. So what you're seeing
It could
is
have
not
been lagged, to be fair, but I agree. There was a point about 5 minutes in where they just completely stopped listening to you and talking way over you. But before that, right, the first thing you started off on was defining in a negative sense what the men's rights movement is. You started talking about what it isn't. And like he gave you the great chance. He said, okay, what is the men's rights movement about? And your go-to there, in my opinion, should have been like, oh, male victims of domestic violence, sexual violence, like father's rights, circumcision, child custody.
I brought those things, but that's the point. I did bring those things up, and there were moments in the video where I was saying that, and they literally turned the mic down.
Yeah, that was too late, man. You should have done it right away.
I agree. I agree. But if you start off, the first question was, I asked him, what was your first impression of someone if they said they were a men's rights activist? His first response was, oh, I think they'd be a lunatic. I responded calmly, but don't you think that's going to set a negative tone from the onset?
Yeah, fair enough. I think in general, though, like going forwards, because I've noticed even with the other show you went on, like the first thing you talked about was us being like not alt-right and stuff. I think, yeah, the best way to like introduce the conversation is to start to have the most serious male issues and like the most serious ways men are discriminated against.
I think pension ages are a serious issue.
Well,
I
that's
think
fair,
they're
but
a
I don't think it
moderately
has the
serious.
same sting for people as like family courts and domestic violence and like rape and stuff.
Well, I did mention domestic violence, and then Nomi said, "Oh, let me go throw up."
Yeah, Nomi was crazy, 100%.
We did talk about domestic violence. That was brought up, and then Sam even asked me, do you think that rates of domestic violence against men is the same as women? I said, well, it's debatable because there are different studies that suggest different figures. So I did bring that up.
Eventually, yeah. But yeah, Naomi was crazy. At one point, she was saying like, "Oh well, women earn less money, so they should only have support for domestic violence." It's like, okay, then you're a fucking crazy person, like whatever.
Yeah, I would have started off with circumcision and the genocide thing. I think those are two of our strongest issues. Just the fact that boys in America are routinely having, this horrifying thing done to them. And then he mentioned the draft, which was good. And I think he actually agreed with Blue on the draft. But, I think pension ages are an issue, but they're not an attention-grabbing headline issue. They're not the same sort of thing as like the genocide thing, the empathy gap, the circumcision, like the way that male rape victims are treated, the male domestic violence victims are treated, the way that racial issues are magnified by gender to an extraordinary degree, so that they have a multiplying effect. So that it's mostly black men who get lynched. It's mostly black men who get abused. and it's like the same in LGBT. If you're seen as male, then you are much more seen as the objects of suspicion and hate. Whereas if you're female or seen as female, then you're much less likely to get that, and you're much more likely to be treated as either with compassion or at least at the bare minimum as a joke. But you don't get that kind of like headlong, we're going to beat the tar out of you sort of attitude. And, you know, I've never heard of lesbians being thrown off of the roof of buildings. But that's really, really how you've got to start. You've got to go in strong. If you're going on one of these shows, you really have to treat it like a bombing run. You have to get your strongest bomb, and it has to go in first while they're not expecting it, and it has to really do some devastating damage, and then you follow up with everything else you've got as quickly as possible, and you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if they push back, you need to be questioning why they're doing that, and you need to be taking control. And one of the things Blue could have done in response to the lunatic thing, as we were saying earlier, is that he could have asked them, oh, so you don't support gay men's rights, you don't support black men's rights. So it's, you know, you use their ideology against them, and you make them suffer for any kind of accusation against you.
You know, I was going in with the intention to not be argumentative. So I was really hoping to not descend into that and not dissolve into that. And again, I see that is lowering yourself. And that's just not a style of debate that I respect. And it's not a style of debate that I participate in. And it's not something that I have any interest in. You know,
But you should have still gone in strong, I think.
You know, going in strong, I feel like I went in honest. I said, I'm a mental activist. How would you feel about that? And he said, I think you're a lunatic. And I said, okay, I understand why you feel that way. And I just think that I went into the conversation with the intention of having a dialogue, and he went into the conversation with the intention of having a fight. I think that speaks for itself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would have gone in honestly trying to be nice to them, but as soon as they mentioned the lunatic thing, the gloves would have been off, and I would have gone in for my bombing run. And I would very much, you know, ask them why they don't care about these issues, why they are so unempathetic. And I would have been very much focused on them. I feel like, you know, having a weapon like that behind you is one of the most effective ways. Like, you can be nice about it. You don't have to be shouty about it or aggressive, but you can go in and you can take apart their ideology with a few simple words and leave them reeling, and that way they're on the defensive from the outgo. If, you know, they try to put you on the, you know, they try to provoke you into a rage, what you've got to do instead is make them look stupid. Like, give them enough rope to hang them, and keep asking them loaded questions if you can, because honestly, you have to know your crowd here. If it's an honest, nice show, then go in honestly and nicely. If it's a nasty show, then treat them as an enemy stronghold and basically try to, you know, put as much down as you can without being nasty or rude. And, you know, just sort of put them on the defensive. Like, ask them lots of penetrating questions and be very, very, you know, careful to, you know, get them into positions where they have to contradict their own ideology if you can.
Yeah, no, I get that. So let me check again and see where their channel is at in the conversation, because I'm pretty sure there will be a free call hour coming up sometime soon. So let me just check real fast. Hold on, I'll be right back.
While he's away, Lou? I don't think you muted your mic. But while he's away, has anyone else? Yeah. While he's away, has anyone else got anything they'd like to talk about? Any issues I'd like to raise? This is actually our longest Friday chat ever, I think. So, if anyone wants to, tip in with any issues or anything, or any tips for. Okay, so,
Yeah, hold on. So I just talked to the mods. I sent them a message, and I'm seeing what they're gonna say back. Hold on one sec.
mods of who? Of the show? Please do bear with us. We're just trying to get on to their show again. So, we can just talk about general things. It would be off topic, which is something we don't usually do. But if nothing is happening and we're still waiting for Blue, then talking about anything is better than nothing. Blue, did you have something to say?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Sure. I think the point that could be made about my phone call kind of sums up the problem with the men's rights movement is that we are so misrepresented, and so many people have false idea of who we are and what we believe. And all we try and do is express ourselves honestly. And when feminists suppress us, expressing ourselves honestly, it's exactly like you say. It's about a fear of the truth.
But in that statement, you don't express what you actually believe in as an MRA. And then you have to prove that feminists are, silencing men, which becomes a pretty difficult claim. And even whilst you're arguing about that, you're not even talking about mental issues.
No, I didn't say feminists are silencing men. I said feminists try and silence MRAs.
MRAs, yeah, true. Right.
They do silence men too, though.
And that's as well, yeah.
Yeah, but we do need a nice, tight definition of what it is to be an MRA, so that people can, take the tweet version, what's an MRA, in 280 characters or less.
Someone who believes that there are issues that exist that affect men and boys, politically and socially, that are discriminatory, and wants to address them.
Perfect. That's perfect. I wouldn't even add anything to that. I think that's what we really need to. Pardon?
Not entwine. How would you feel about that definition?
I think it's a fine definition, and then hopefully you're asked, well, what issues affect men, or what issues do you care about? You could even lead in after that definition, something like, so do you want to hear what issues I advocate for?
Should have. Yeah, I should have done that.
Yeah, once you've laid the groundwork for definition like that, then you can start talking about what an MRA isn't. Because really you've got to define the thing before you explain what it isn't. It's no good saying that a thing like an orange is not a apple, and it's not a lemon, and it's not a tree, and it's not a rock. You've really got to tell people what it is, and then go in and explain. Once you've explained that, add some nuance in that, like to beat any misconceptions that might be going around. Like, this is what I really mean by doing it in terms of like a bombing run. You've got to you've got to go in fast and hard with like the most concise package definition you possibly can, because otherwise people will just they'll tune you out very often. If you start defining it as a negative, you're automatically on the defensive and stuff like that as well.
Okay, guys, well, hold on just a minute because there may be something happening here. If you recall, I was talking about Vaush, who is another YouTuber, and he has a live stream going on right now. And I joined the server a couple days ago, and I'm actually talking to the mods, and we might be able to go on his show right now. So let me actually...
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, hold on 1 second.
As well as I hope you don't want me to talk or anything, because I am getting pretty tired right now, and so I'm going to be increasingly incoherent, I think.
Getting on Vosh's stream would be a pretty big win, I have to say. And yeah, if you get the opportunity to like shout out some issues or some organizations that are like helping those issues for men, then yeah, that's like a big win.
A brief question.
I'm messaging one of the mods right now.
Little bit of a brief question, and I don't know if this is completely frowned upon. Have you all thought about moving away from the name men's rights activists because it does have such a negative connotation?
Oh, that comes up every couple of weeks,
all
to be
the
honest.
time. The thing is, the way I feel about it is I completely understand the point you're making, and I have thought about this before. I just think that as a brand name, it's too kind of instilled at this point to move away from. But we can try and move away from it, but I just think that it's too entrenched in the way people think. It's a name that we own, it's who we are, and we can try and change it, but I don't think it's really possible to. Maybe I'm wrong.
I would also add that yeah, there's no all of the like positive organizations that we already like run, or all of the charities that are like basically funded by MRAs. They don't call themselves MRAs explicitly already. So we're kind of already there for the most part. But yeah, I mean, people will, if we don't have like a unifying name that's not like, egalitarian, like what does that even entail, right? Then people aren't going to be able to identify us by what we believe. And sure, there's been a lot of poisoning the well, like I'd agree with that, but I don't know if starting a new name would necessarily help things.
I think it would be a very bad idea to start trying to rename us, because it would, for one thing, split the movement. And for another thing, it wouldn't even matter, because as soon as they picked up on the fact that we'd changed our name, they would be like the MRAs, who are now calling themselves blank, to try and trick people. Or it would get wrapped up into the manosphere as well, and they wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. Or, I mean, it's like they already count fathers' rights groups as separate from MRAs when they're talking about the manosphere. Like they'll say men's rights groups, fathers' rights groups, and so on. It just becomes part of their list. It would take an awful lot more energy for us to like rename and rebrand ourselves than it would for them to just acknowledge that we've done so. And it wouldn't really help anyway, because it's they hate what we are, even though they don't really understand what we are, and changing our name is just going to give them, you know, more ammo, probably. Skeptic, did you have something to say?
Okay, so I just got on Vouch's live stream. So give me a couple seconds here, because we may have something. But in the meantime, guys, keep talking, because it might take a few minutes to get this done.
Sure thing. What's the Paris update? Have they done anything for that the R-Star? I really need to get a pet, then we can share pet stories.
I would say that going forwards, like we have to accept the definition that's given to us, especially if we're talking to like feminists or left wingers, of like toxic masculinity. If we just say like, why are you calling men toxic, or something along those lines, like it's disparaging to call men toxic, they're ultimately like gonna switch off and disregard us. If we instead say something like, well, with toxic masculinity, you're saying that men are hurt by male gender roles, but you're not saying that we should support victimized men or that society should change to help men. You're just saying men should change. You know, that's much more difficult to dismiss. And it fits within their framework perfectly well. I couldn't catch that, sorry.
Would you like to repeat yourself? I kind of missed it too. But it's an interesting strategy. I mean, we do have to adapt to who we're talking to when we're talking. I mean, you can talk people down using their own ideological framework. Like, you can just sort of do what you did, really. I mean, I think that is a good plan, and maybe we could put that in the playbook. If we actually do need to, like, make ourselves an official playbook. Right?
I mean, I've found it to be fairly effective, yeah, to anytime someone points out like toxic masculinity and like male gender roles and how they like impact men, is to just point out, because it's always used as a way to explain away like male suicide or like domestic violence, like men don't come forward because of toxic masculinity. And it's like, okay, so what you're telling me is that you're offering like no help or solutions to like victimized and abused men. Like you just think men who are abused should come forwards, even though, you know, the male domestic violence hotlines are like constantly overwhelmed. You don't think that the lack of support offered is the limiting factor in how men are treated. If you instead go down the route of like trying to, you know, disparage toxic masculinity, like you're ultimately not talking about the issues, which is what people need to hear about, I think, to become more empathetic.
Yeah, when you're talking about toxic masculinity, I think there's one thing that might help is if you get them to define it and say, okay, so it's men who have problems with social interactions and things, and so they act super stoic, maybe, if they go down that route, or it's men who feel like they have to provide for their families and they have to go overboard with providing for their families, and so they push for like the top of the company, or whatever they define it as, and then ask them, do you think that calling these people to their face toxic is going to help, or is it going to cause them to basically disregard what you're saying and think you're being mean to them for no reason? I mean, I think that's something we need to, talk about maybe. Like, I mean, toxic masculinity as a feminist claim is something we've never really properly addressed, I don't think. We've criticized the claim itself, but we've never really gone in hard on it, I don't think. I think we've kind of just let them have it for the most part and just complained about the wording. Like, you can complain that saying toxic masculinity is a bad term, but really that's largely tone policing, and we need to look at the content and what they're actually doing as well. Hey Blue, you got a stream update for us?
Yeah, I'm talking to some of the staff from Voucher's show, and I'm going to go back and check Sam right now, see what they're doing.
You know, honestly, I think it might be a good idea if we schedule the stream with Val for another day, and we maybe specifically join their stream as a group. That might be more helpful.
I don't think Vouch does allow like multiple guests on like that. I mean, maybe you would have two on potentially, but generally, I'm pretty sure it's one-on-one conversations. As well, I think it's like, you know, Vouch has like a bigger audience than the Majority Report. I'm pretty sure. And you've already been on the Majority Report, so I would say go for Vouch if it's like one or the other.
What is Vosh about again? Are they pro or anti us, or?
He is a like socialist, basically.
All right.
But he's relatively more centre than like most socialists. He's relatively chilled. He does
Okay.
talk about men's issues, like, but mostly in the way that feminists
He had
talk about
he
stuff.
had a
But he
he had
does
a
it better
pretty
than
good
most.
debate.
So he's yeah.
He had a pretty good debate with Warren Farrell, where even though they didn't agree on too many things, it was still a very civil and professional debate. And so Vosh is someone who I would respect as a debater.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's more sympathetic than like most people that you will find towards men's issues in particular. I think with Warren Farrell, they just couldn't get past this like biological essentialism thing, where like fathers being important because they are men was kind of there was a disconnect there. But it was relatively good. Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, Blue might be more of a better fit for talking to him than Farrell, because Blue is more left wing, I think, and he's certainly not
No,
a
I'm not. I mean,
biological
I would
essentialist.
say I'm very centrist.
Well, to be honest, I think most of us are pretty centrist here. This is like we've had a bunch of political tests from various people, and I took note of them, and mostly it's centre or left of centre. So, yeah. I mean, I normally find myself in the centre bit. It does depend on the test, honestly. And a lot of them are America-centric, so it can be a bit like I have to be a guess what the English equivalent is of whatever the question they're asking is.
Pax, by the way, I saw you just joined us. Welcome to the group. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, well, what was that debate with Will Ferrell and Vosh when they were talking about like the biological essentialist stuff about like who took what position or
So basically, they both agreed that having two parents is better than having a single parent. Not because there's anything wrong with a single parent, but because obviously having two hands is better than one. They disagreed on whether or not it's better to have a same-sex couple raising a child or a man and a woman raising a child. Farrell took the position that having a mother and a father makes it easier for a child to understand and navigate sort of gender norms and expectations. And Vaush was citing a study that was saying that there was no real difference in outcome between a child raised by two different parents and a same-sex couple. In my opinion, that debate, they weren't really very hostile towards each other because they both kind of agreed that for the most part, either couple is capable of raising a child successfully. And Farrell has kind of implied that, you know what, an absolutely ideal, optimal situation, having a man and a woman might be easier for a child to understand differences between gender expectations, whereas Vaush was saying it makes no difference. So it wasn't a very hostile argument. And they both kind of agreed for the most part that it's more about the individuals. So you could have a same-sex couple that are excellent parents, and you could have a man and a woman who are terrible parents. So it was a pretty mutually respectful debate for the most part.
Yeah, the pinning point was kind of that there's like mum style parenting and dad style parenting, and that dad style parenting is like very beneficial as well. And Warren Farrell was kind of pointing out the like better outcomes from having like an involved father. But then, you know, Vosh was kind of going, well, why does it have to be, you know, if it's so great, like maybe this is an argument for having two dads. But yeah, it was just minor disagreement. They agreed ultimately that parents should be
because
involved in
there's
that.
definitely like a decent amount of research showing the benefits of like gay parenting. but I mean, yeah, having like two parents absolutely seems like better than having one parent, like empirically.
Yeah,
But
I agree with that. I mean, I do think that having a range of different parenting types would help create a society that's more balanced and has more people who are different, think differently. Like if you're raised by a single sex couple, then you're likely to think differently to somebody who's raised by a heterosexual couple. So it's going to create differences in society, and I think differences are good as long as people respect differences and they don't treat them as battlegrounds. Um, but yeah, single-sex parents. I think we can pretty universally agree that all of the stats are against them. Not that I feel like they're bad people necessarily, but it's. Hello, Skeptic. I think your mic's very quiet or something.
I haven't
oh my
said
God,
anything.
skeptic.
Sorry?
I haven't been talking.
Oh, you weren't? Oh,
No.
sorry. Your mic was on, and I thought you were saying something.
Skeptic, would you like to say something?
Well, not this moment. I'm busy. I'm just listening.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough.
Pax, by any chance, did you see the conversation that I had with Sam Sater 4 days ago?
I watched the fucking stream.
What were your thoughts?
That's pretty much the reaction I was expecting, to be honest.
Like, okay, honestly, like, yeah. I mean, to be quite honest with you, Orange, I was mostly disappointed. I mean, I guess like I would have liked it if you would have like, okay, so you started off with the empathy gap, and that was a great start. But I mean, I think you could have gone with like the big man's right issues, as a segue from that. Yeah, because it manifests like in a pretty blatant, extreme way when it comes to like genital mutilation and war and issues like that.
Well, there were times when I did, and they actually turned my mic volume down.
Really? Oh, okay.
I mean, I can't prove that, but it's pretty obvious. I mean, I know what my iPhone sounds like. I've called in several times and then listened to myself back on the internet, so I know how the audio is supposed to work. And that is very much the impression I got. There are times when, if you listen very carefully, you can hear my voice faintly in the background, and they're just talking over me. So there were many things I wanted to discuss, but I did not want to descend into that kind of hostile, aggressive, interrupting each other's style. So I didn't play that game, but I agree with you. It could have been much better.
Yeah, no, honestly, like Blue Orange, like there's so many issues you can pick from where the empathy gap, like even though there's like empirical evidence for the empathy gap itself, but like where it manifests in like pretty severe ways, right? Yeah, I mean there's plenty of issues you can pick from to use as examples, absolutely, and issues that are pretty fucking terrible too.
Yeah, I've started saying that all of our issues stem from the empathy gap, and I think that it is our primary issue. The empathy gap itself is the problem from which everything stems that we have to deal with, from divorce to domestic violence to boys being raped by women and then the woman not being prosecuted, and then the court saying that he has to pay her child support, and saying that, quote, sometimes the victim has responsibilities. I mean, these are all things that we can directly link to the empathy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you don't sound like you're in America, but like, okay, America has like a police brutality problem, right? And like, okay, there's like people like the BLM who try to address it, but they leave out the blatant empathy gap there when it comes to like men and women, like how they're treated by the criminal justice system. Like,
Men are 19 times more likely to be killed by police than women in the U.S. 19 times. 1900% increase. And men of any race are more likely to be killed by police than women of any race. So a white man is more likely to be killed by police than a black woman. So there is a gender gap with police brutality.
Yeah.
That is true. The gender
Well,
gap is even larger.
like it probably
I
exists in
I
the
can
UK
comment on
too.
this.
Probably
Did
exists
you have
everywhere,
something?
to be honest.
Go ahead, Skeptic.
There's the left in America since the Great Society Project was began by Lyndon Johnson have, I don't know, it's by happenstance or strategy, they've made social engineering policies that have destroyed the nuclear family in the goal of making more dependency upon the government. And it's made 3 generations of rambunctious youth, generally black in my experience and where I live, without mentors, and that's led them down a bad path because the divorce rates before that used to be the same in the black and white community, and the crime rates were about the same. So removing the man from the home has led to all this shit.
Really? Crime rates were the same? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
If you've got like a
Actually,
link to that, that'd be helpful.
Okay, can you
before
guys?
the 1950s, I believe the crime rate and the divorce rate was even lower in the black community than the white community.
Yeah.
It wasn't even equal; it was actually better.
Yeah.
So I absolutely think that the disenfranchising of the father, is one of the major causes, not the only major cause, because again, racism is still a factor, but it's not the
Yeah.
only factor. I think the disenfranchisement of the father is a factor in many of the issues that the black community faces in America today.
Yeah. But as BLM is concerned, BLM is a lesbian transgender group with a goal of destroying the nuclear Western style family. They removed that from our website as what we believe objective because of the negative truth of it. But people avoid that fact that they're militant lesbians.
Well, I'm not so sure I would say they're a lesbian group. I mean, I would definitely have some criticisms towards the leadership, but calling BML a lesbian group, I don't think is totally accurate, to be honest.
I think it's more accurate to call them a Marxist group.
Okay. Well,
Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be. Well, I mean, they definitely have Marxist leanings. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or they stated on their web. Sorry, go on.
I was saying that's what they say in interviews. We are trained Marxists.
Yeah. Well, they say it right on their, or at least they used to say it right on their website that Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. Well, they might have actually outright said communist. But yeah, it's very interesting that they seem to be trying to stage like some sort of revolution or something. It's gone far beyond whatever it initially was, and I'm not sure how much of it was deliberate, to be honest. But I'm thinking a lot of it was. But anyway, back onto the men's rights issues, because BLM really isn't a men's rights issue. It's more of a periphery thing associated with feminism. But
Yeah.
I
We
would
should
actually kind of say that you could tie in BML to men's rights, because I think a lot of black men are dissatisfied by how feminism and the progressive movement treats them. And I've heard this firsthand, black men saying how they feel there's too much influence of kind of extremist feminism in Black Lives Matter leadership. And when it comes down to talking about issues like domestic violence, there's a big blind spot when it comes to men's issues. Many Black men have exactly the same complaints as any other man when it comes to things like a domestic violence victim who happens to be male not being taken seriously because they're male. Black men have a
Like the
higher
issues
rate.
that they talk about disproportionately affect men in general. Yeah, okay, maybe black men a little more,
100%.
but honestly, like, okay, I'm a young guy. I haven't been in the the MRA and the MRA scene for that long, but like why haven't like MRA groups like try to hijack, that that movement to be honest.
I wouldn't use the word hijack, but I've made several efforts. I mean, myself on my channel, I've made videos addressing Black men saying, hey, come join us. We're on your side. And Ab and Preach, I don't know if you know the Ab and Preach channel. I think those are two Black male MRAs who are very, very much mainstream. Oh, I think it's happening. I think it is happening slowly but surely.
Because I've been I've been paying attention to BLM for like, almost like half a decade now. And it's like every single issue they raise, right, disproportionately affects, man. And even what you said that, yeah, okay, a man of any race in America is more likely to get shot by the police than a woman of any race in America. And yeah, that's 100% true. Like, but they're trying to hijack it and talk about like, oh, that like women of color in the criminal justice system, okay, yeah, they face issues too, but I mean, sorry, man, have it worse. Like, and it's kind of shameful that they took that route, like putting people who have it better under the absurd criminal justice system that exists in this country in the front lines. Like,
I'm going to try and find it now. There's a study that's oftenly cited, Michigan Law School, looking at federal sentencing, and it found that the gender disparity in sentencing is bigger than the racial disparity in sentencing. There's a 70% difference in sentencing for male defendants, where male defendants get 70% longer sentences for the same crime when mitigating and aggravating factors are controlled for. So even if it's like prior records or the type of crime or all that kind of stuff, when you control for aggravating and mitigating factors and get 70% longer sentences on average in the US for felonies. Let me find that now.
Was that a different study to the 63% study? Because there was
honestly, what is it like in the UK? Because like those disparities probably exist there.
It's similar. We had a study for the UK too, done by the Met Police, I think. But I think we've lost it. I'm not sure where it's gone. Though we do actually have another study which looks back across the last 200 years and does the same thing. And they found exactly the same.
Yeah, that's what I would expect. The difference would be, cops being more trigger happy over here. And, that's something I have to like, think about as a man in America. I mean, I've been pulled over by the police, like, maybe like twice my whole life, but I was like, okay, I have to be like extra nice and polite, so I don't get shot.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, really. I mean, we always talk about like black men being pulled over by the police is like something that's known to be dangerous, but we don't generally think about how white men being pulled over by the police is pretty dangerous too.
Yeah, it's like
I hope you.
Yeah, it's like. Oh, sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, I hope you can't hear that background audio. If you can, I'll shut the window.
Oh, is it coming from my mic or someone else's mic? Or...
If it's children screaming, it's coming from me.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, some outside. So
If you guys check the voice discussion channel, I'm going to link the article in the study right now.
cool. We have a lot of this stuff on the citations list if anyone's unfamiliar with it. Just myname.com, basically. menarhuman.com/citations. You should be able to find it in the drop-down bar, menu bar at the top, even if you can't find it by typing it in. I can link to it as well if you want.
But yeah, I mean, there's absolutely like a problem with like too many cops with mental health issues out on the street. Which is pretty dangerous altogether. But it seems that they take it out more on men. Like, yeah, it's like what was like around 40% of cops in America are like domestic abusers. So yeah, you have like these like mentally ill people. Sorry, what?
40%? That seems like a pretty high figure, though.
Well, I mean, the figures that I've read, if I remember correctly, are around like 40% of cops. So
could you okay. Perhaps, if you wouldn't mind linking that in the voice discussion?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, give me a minute, but it's like okay, I understand that. Authority in general is more likely to use violence on men, anyways. And I have to keep in mind that there's a lot of deranged people with a fucking badge running around. And yeah.
I think there's a reason why people in authority, say police officers, are more likely to use excessive violence against men. Do you think there's a separate reason for that, or do you think it's part of the same overall societal empathy gap and misandry? Hi, Pax. Sorry, did you hear my question just now?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the empathy gap and misandry, bias against man, that kind of stuff.
You don't think it's like a unique situation that
hello? Yo, Tom, was this guy speaking or?
I can't hear him. I think he might be suffering the Discord silent bug, possibly. But he was asking if he's gone. Yeah, Pax. He was asking you if you think the cops shooting men a lot more in America is related to societal issues, the empathy gap, or something else. I think
police be more likely to use force on men.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all three personally. But what do you?
No, I think it has to do with like empathy gaps found across the world, misandry, and bias against men. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that doesn't seem to be like a uniquely American problem, to be honest. Like, everywhere I go, it seems that, or every part of the world and the modern world that I look at, it seems that, people in general seem to care more about women's issues and men's issues, including men.
Yeah, we've got a lot of studies on the website suggesting that. Okay, well, I think that Blue might be back in a second, but I think we could probably call this now. We've gone on for a full hour longer than we usually do. I'm getting quite tired. It's quite late for me here, so I would like to clock off. If anyone else wants to carry on talking here, please feel free. This place is open 24/7. But I will be shutting off the stream and calling it tonight. So good night, everyone. And
Yeah. Yo,
right.
before you go, like, at what time? Like, is there like a set schedule for the Sam Cedar call-in show? So you know I can call and plan ahead of time.
Oh, you'd have to check their website. They seem to, from what Blue said, they have guests on, and then they have like a call-in hour, some sort of happy hour thing, you know, where it's like for an hour they have like people calling in and stuff. But I don't really have a schedule for that.
No, I mean that's fine. I'm sure I can find it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they probably posted it on their website somewhere. But yeah. But anyway, good night, everyone. Unless there's any additional questions or anything.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right, and everyone, do feel free to come back next week, 5 o'clock UK time. That's something like 11 o'clock New York time, 11 a.m. New York time. So good night, everyone.